Hey everyone, I'm your host, Jerry Sherstead. Welcome to the Jerry Rig Podcast. We have an exciting guest today, and we're going to be exploring, besides, our normal stuff of marketing, technology, and that sort of thing, we're going to get into the intricate dance of human resources, HR, and talent acquisition, which is, you job seekers out there, it's a combination that it's always on top of your mind, right? So we're going to have a special guest. Her name is Melissa Grabiner, and Melissa is all over LinkedIn, and she is a talent acquisition pro. So we're going to have a great meeting, and we're going to come right back up here with my thumbs up on my Mac operating system, okay?
Yeah.
This is the Jerry Rigged Podcast, your no-nonsense knowledge base for business technology, marketing, and analytics. And now your host, Jerry Sherstead.
Hey, so welcome back. Our guest today is going to be Melissa Grabiner. She is a global HR and talent acquisition leader, a multiple award-winning, and also recognized as a top voice on LinkedIn for recruiting, job search strategies. So we're going to get behind the curtain and unveil some top recruiter secrets, and with our friend Melissa. Melissa, welcome.
Thank you, Jerry. I am very happy to be here. I appreciate you asking me to be on your show.
Yeah, no problem. Well, we love having fun, talented people. That's what makes life a little extra fun. And, the cool thing about Melissa, and if this is not impressive enough, she's also a yoga instructor, which is not easy to do. I've tried yoga, and my body just doesn't seem like it wants to bend and contort sometimes the way that it would like to. So anyway, we're going to learn some HR perspective and maybe even get a little bit of Zen along the way as we dive into this. So Melissa, welcome to the show. Absolute pleasure to have you on. So let's dive right in, Melissa. Let's talk about your incredible journey in HR and talent acquisition. Can you share with us your approach to finding and nurturing talent and how it's evolved in this crazy digital age that we're dealing with?
Yes, absolutely. So I think the approach to finding and nurturing talent has evolved significantly, particularly in the digital age, because we have so much new technologies, there's a changing workforce dynamic, and really evolving employer expectations. So the key things I believe in how this has evolved is when we look at talent acquisition, there's a lot of what we call digital recruiting platforms. So I remember back in the day when I graduated from college, I would open the newspaper to search for job openings. Nowadays, that doesn't really even exist anymore. So companies are utilizing online job boards, various social media platforms, and even professional networking sites like LinkedIn. And this allows companies to reach a wider pool of candidates more efficiently and effectively. And I would also say data-driven recruitment. There's a lot of data available out there for companies. And what I think the progressive companies are doing, they're increasing their leverage of analytics and data-driven insights to refine their recruiting strategies. So most companies nowadays are using what's called an ATS, otherwise known as an applicant tracking system, which is super important to streamline hiring processes, analyze candidate behavior, so on and so forth. And I think something that is super important to talk about is the remote work kind of world that we live in now. So since COVID, obviously, a lot has changed in the world and a lot has changed in the world of work as a result as well. And so because of COVID, a lot of employees were starting to work remote, and it has enabled companies to tap into a global talent pool. And what I always say to leaders that reach out to me is companies that allow remote work have the pick of the best talent globally, and companies that do not allow remote work only have the pick of the best talent nationally. And I think there's a huge distinction there. And what's really nice is that employers are no longer limited by geographical boundaries and really can recruit from talent anywhere in the world, which leads to a greater diversity and really specialization within these companies. The other thing I would say is the personalization of the candidate experience. And this is something that I speak about a lot on LinkedIn because I'm very passionate about this. It's really important for companies that want to win the war for talent to personalize the candidate experience really at every stage of the recruiting process, which to me really starts with the job posting. So it's talking about targeted job ads, tailored communication, automated scheduling, virtual interviews. The technology is helping to personalize and increase and improve the candidate experience. And again, any company that wants to win the war for talent always has to have this in the forefront of their minds. It's going to be interesting, though. I think the evolution of talent acquisition is going to continue to kind of move forward. But overall, it's the greater emphasis on technology, data-driven insights, and personalized experiences. These are the things that are going to allow companies to attract, engage, and retain top talent in this very highly competitive job market.
Yeah, that makes sense. It makes perfect sense. Well, tell us a little bit about your journey. We were talking about that off camera, about how you got into talent acquisition. I understand it was kind of an accident.
Yes, it's interesting. In speaking with a lot of other recruiters, it seems like most recruiters somewhat just fall into recruiting versus starting their career in recruiting. And what happened with me was I worked at a company for 18 years called Takeda Pharmaceuticals. And for the first 8 or so years, I was a senior HR business partner. And the business that I was supporting was looking to centralize their talent acquisition function. And so the leaders of this business tapped me on the shoulder and said, "We'd love for you to start this talent acquisition function within our business. We are going to give you the budget that you need, the headcount that you need, bring on the right technology, create the processes, and make this happen." So I kind of started this endeavor with a blank slate. To be honest, didn't necessarily know what I was doing. I kind of figured it out along the way. But fast forward, 8+ years later, I was managing a team of 11 direct reports. My team hired 50% of all hires globally across this Fortune 500, global biotech pharmaceutical organization. I ran a very successful team, and I really started with not knowing much, but kind of just learned as I went along, and it was a really, really great experience. And when I left the company after 18 years, I just decided to stay within talent acquisition. Right now, I work at a company called One Digital, and I have clients predominantly in the San Francisco area. They're mostly venture-backed startup pharmaceutical companies, and I help them with their various talent acquisition needs.
Nice. Well, it sounds like you just have that inner tenacity. They gave you a project. You didn't have a background in it. You dove in the swimming pool in the deep end, and you came out swimming.
Yes, it was a great experience. It was definitely a learning experience. I am the first to say I made a lot of mistakes along the way, but that was almost to be expected. And, the fact that the business leaders had the confidence in me to do this gave me, in a way, the confidence to do this the best that I could. But it turned into an incredibly successful department. My team and I and myself individually have won numerous awards, global awards, based on the efforts that I put forth with the endeavor of starting this department from inception.
That is so awesome. That's a great story.
Yeah.
So, our listeners tend to be eager job seekers, and they're kind of navigating this vast sea of opportunities. And so from your huge experience, what are some of the key strategies that can make them stand out to recruiters?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that employees, or I should say candidates, can do to stand out. The first I would say is, and I know a lot of job seekers are not going to want to hear this, but I believe in customizing a resume, even a cover letter, and any other application materials to match the specific job requirements. It's important that candidates highlight relevant skills, experiences, and achievements, and really at the end of the day, demonstrate the fit for the role. And building an online presence has never been more important. We have websites like LinkedIn. I recommend to all the job seekers that I speak with is not only have a LinkedIn profile, but optimize that profile. And in addition to LinkedIn, there's sites like Indeed. LinkedIn, I would say, is the major player in this space. The other thing I would say is, and I talk about this a lot on my LinkedIn posts, is to be active on the platform. So it's not just reading through people's posts, it's commenting on those posts, it's creating posts yourself. That's what I have been doing for a while. And I think the reason why I have grown my follower count so high is because I'm very, very engaged on the platform. The other thing I would say to job seekers is to make sure that their profiles and resumes are optimized and updated at all times, because you never know when that recruiter
Yes.
is going to reach out to you for that great opportunity. And the other thing I would say that is probably the most important thing is networking strategically. And I tell this to job seekers all the time, is that if you're going to apply to a position, don't just apply to the job and post and pray and cross your fingers that you're going to get a call from the recruiter. After you apply to a job, find out who the head of HR is, the head of talent acquisition is, reach out to them directly on LinkedIn. I'll tell you something that happened to me that I think is, I'd like to share this story because if it happened to me, it can happen to others as well. When I was looking for a new job a couple of years ago, I wrote down a list of all of the companies that I was interested in working in. And what I did was I reached out to the CEOs of those companies directly. And some people would say, oh, I would be afraid to do this. I don't have the gall to do that. But there was one company that I was interested in working in, and I sent a note directly on LinkedIn to the CEO of this company. Well, she responded, and fast forward 2 weeks, I had a job offer in hand, and I've been at this company for 3 years. So it's
Nice.
networking, but and it's networking strategically. So make sure that you make those connections and don't wait until you're out of a job to start networking. Networking should be happening all the time, even if you're gainfully employed, because you never know when you're going to be out of a job. And it's better to kind of groom and nurture those relationships as time goes on. But I can't stress enough the importance of networking. And statistically, it has been proven time and time again that networking is by far the most effective way in landing a new opportunity. The other thing I would say to wrap up this particular question is to prepare for interviews. I can't tell you how many times I have conversations with candidates, and when I ask them why they're interested in working at the company that I'm consulting with, they have no idea what the company even does. And so that to me is a huge red flag. And what I would say to job seekers is that when you're interviewing for a position, research the company, research the culture, understand the company's products and services, look at any recent news articles. Do this before the interview. It's really important that you have an understanding of the company that you're interviewing with, and make sure that the person on the other side realizes that you've done your homework as well. This is hugely important.
It absolutely is. I personally went through this transition, and it was kind of a light bulb moment because, historically, I just take my one resume, now I call it my base resume, but I take my one resume and I just pump it out to a bajillion people. And at the end of the day, I'd feel all good and proud about myself that I sent out, 50 resumes to 50 different companies in one day. And what I realized was I was literally wasting time.
Yep.
And so when I got plugged into Teal, and this is not a plug for Teal, but I researched a bunch of different kind of job management and tracking systems that I could use to track what I'm doing. And Teal works really well. And as you apply for a job with Teal, and you have your resume on the left and the job description at the right, and the big number up in the right says, your resume has a 18% match to the job description. And it finally hit me. Why would I bother sending this resume in for this job when I have an 18% match with the job description? So you gotta, and as hard as this is for some people to wrap around their head, you have got to customize every single resume for that particular job, which kind of forces you into the next kind of concept, which is, are you just randomly throwing resumes at any company, any job, just because it feels good? Or are you actually looking for roles that you're good at, you have experience at, you know you could do well, you enjoy doing, and with a company that you would enjoy working for? And when you target that down, you're not pumping out 50 resumes a day. You might be only doing 8 to 10, but they count.
No, absolutely. And I want to mention, I'm very happy you talked about Teal, because I think that's a great tool for job seekers. I actually work with Teal in helping to promote their brand on LinkedIn. I think what they're doing for job seekers is far ahead of what a lot of other companies are doing. And I think companies are starting to see that when you have a tool like Teal, it could be a game changer for a job seeker. And so I really appreciate Teal and their innovation and leading the way in this area. But I also agree, I think what a lot of people do is they set up these job alerts on LinkedIn. And so what happens is positions that match those job alerts will appear, and then people will apply. The problem with that is that, I have seen some job postings where, I'm not kidding you, I've seen over 3,000 applications. And for me, if I saw that personally, I wouldn't even bother to apply. I think it's really important when people are looking for a job to be strategic about their job search. And what I was talking about a little bit earlier in terms of, I literally took out a piece of paper and wrote down a target list of companies I was interested in working at. And then I reached out to those CEOs directly. I think my targeted approach made all the difference in the world. I am not a big believer in, let's refresh my LinkedIn browser every 5 minutes and see what new jobs appear. I think you have to be strategic about your job search and go after those companies that you're interested in working for. And I also think what's important people understand is there is such a thing, what I call the hidden job market. Not every company is posting every role that's visible. And so it's possible, and this happened to me, when I reached out to the CEO on LinkedIn, I had no idea if the company was even hiring. Well, it turns out they were. I didn't see a job posting for it. I was just interested in the company. And so I tapped into a woman who was the CEO, who was part of what I, again, would call that hidden job market. So being strategic and methodical and thoughtful about a job search is absolutely the way to go.
Yes, that's amazing advice. And so job seekers should really, really think hard. One of the things that I think, and I see this every day, all day long, is job seekers will pump out 1,000 resumes the wrong way. And then 3 months later, they're just at their wits' end. They're frustrated. And so their solution to their problem is to post this big negative rant on LinkedIn because they want that feedback and that therapy. And so they're like, how do I get a job? And I always post, first on your list should be delete this post, because you're, pardon the expression, you're peeing in your own pool. And all the recruiters and hiring managers that could be your next boss are right here on LinkedIn, and they're seeing your big negative rant. And, I get people get frustrated, but I say, hey, talk to your mom, talk to your wife, talk to your husband, your boyfriend, your significant other, Dr. Phil, but don't do it on LinkedIn.
No, I absolutely agree with you. And quite frankly, when I'm recruiting for my positions, I do check out the candidates' LinkedIn profiles. And there are some posts that I see on LinkedIn just that come through my feed where I can't believe someone would actually post this. And these are people that are job seekers that have made it known that they're job seekers. And so I don't know why these people believe that this is acceptable or it makes sense. The approach that these people are taking is so wrong, and it could really tarnish their chances of obtaining a new position.
Well, and some of these folks get tons of engagement. And so I always ask, so what's your goal here? Was your goal to get a few clicks, a couple of followers, or is your goal still to try to get your next role?
Right.
Because your profile is not even close to being ready. One guy at the top, his top latest experience, he had his jobs from previous, but his top current job was I am looking for a new role.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't make any sense at all. And I think even my two college-age sons would agree with that. So,
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like, dude, we're trying to help you here, man. We're trying to help you get a job. And your your profile header is the default header LinkedIn gives you. You've never put anything up there. Your headshot was taken in a closet. I mean, come on.
yeah. So I recently started offering consulting services for job seekers. And the reason I started doing this is because I typically on LinkedIn, honestly receive probably over 100 messages a day from people all over the world asking me for my advice regarding their job search. I mean, I can't keep up with the amount of messages that I receive. And so a lot of people were saying, do you offer any sort of like coaching? And so I started doing this and it's been a lot of fun. But one of the services that I offer is LinkedIn optimization and LinkedIn branding, because what a lot of people don't realize is that employers do look on individuals' LinkedIn profiles. And there's a lot of people I speak with that have a very unprofessional picture. They have no banner in the background. It defaults to LinkedIn's banner. They don't use all of the real estate, what I call real estate that LinkedIn provides them in terms of their header. And so it's really important that job seekers optimize their LinkedIn profile and also keep it up to date at all times, because recruiters are looking at that. I look at LinkedIn profiles for pretty much all of my candidates. And so it's really important that job seekers place an emphasis and an importance on LinkedIn, because if I'm doing this as a recruiter, I can guarantee you that other recruiters are doing it as well.
Absolutely. And hey, I've been around a few years. I'm not 20 anymore. And so I remember the old days when you went down, you picked up the local newspaper, went home, you got a pen, you started circling the jobs, and you would mail in a resume, or you jump in your car and you just drive down to the office and go, hey, I'm responding to your job offer. And then I looked at LinkedIn and I see all this complaining about the broken system and blah, 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 blah. And I just go, you have one place here, this epicenter of recruiters, hiring managers, companies, CEOs, job seekers. It's this huge, huge epicenter where the marketplace now is right in front of you. You can sit at home and you can communicate and talk to these people and connect. And personally, I just think it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And so if your profile, like I've seen, like you don't even have a headshot. Say, what are you doing?
I think the other thing that's really important to mention here, and a lot of people don't know this, which is why it's important that I mention it, is that a lot of recruiters have what's called a LinkedIn recruiter license, which in essence allows us to go behind the scenes of LinkedIn and search the database based on keywords, which we pull those keywords from people's profiles. So for example, if I'm looking to hire a manufacturing engineer in San Francisco, I am able to, within the platform, type in that job title, type in San Francisco as a location, type in the level, and LinkedIn will then spit out all of the applicable profiles. A lot of recruiters are using these LinkedIn license. And so that's why I instruct to job seekers is, especially if they're applying to a job, they want to make sure that as many of those keywords in the job description are on their profile, because this makes it a greater possibility that that person's profile is actually going to be pulled up based on that keyword search. And again, I'm bringing this up because I think most people don't realize that is how we as recruiters are utilizing LinkedIn to find talent, is through what's called a LinkedIn recruiter license. So that's why I always instruct to job seekers and even people that are happy at their jobs. You always have to plan for A, B, and C. There are so many people that contact me and say, I've been at this company for 15 years and I got pulled into my boss's office and all of a sudden I was told they eliminated my position. So these people are completely blindsided. They have no idea where to begin. Their resume has not been put together in years. They have a very minimal LinkedIn profile, a very minimal LinkedIn presence. And these people are in a complete panic mode because they realize that they now have to find a job and they have no clue how to begin.
They've always assumed that they would just have the job.
Yes, and there's no such thing from my experience, and I say this based on what I see on LinkedIn and just staying up to date within trends, is that companies are doing mass layoffs, and a lot of times people simply don't see it coming. And that's why,
Yeah.
and I posted about this recently on LinkedIn, and the post got a huge engagement, is that everybody has to plan for A, B, and C because no one is safe. I have senior vice presidents that have been with the company for 20 years reach out to me and say, I don't even know what to do. I literally just got laid off and I'm panicking. I've had medical doctors reach out to me. I've had PhDs reach out to me. So no one is safe. It's just the reality of the job market that we're in, especially the tech industry has been slaughtered the last, I would say, 4 to 5 months. So people have to be prepared, and people cannot just assume that they're safe, because the truth is no one is safe.
No one is safe. Well, you're not even safe from owning your own business. Even when you own your own business, customers can fire you. So I like to try to stay diversified and have a job and have some side gigs, and
Yep.
and that way you're not left completely 100% in the lurch.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. That recruiter, I've actually played around with LinkedIn Recruiter, and you're absolutely right. My personal profile, I target Salesforce business analyst roles typically. And if you look at if you did a computer scan of my LinkedIn profile, the term Salesforce business analyst is probably in there about 150 times in some way, shape, or form, between jobs, experience, projects. I got everything filled out. I even got recommendations, and I asked them to use the term Salesforce business analyst in the recommendation. And the net result is I actually get too many recruiters calling me. I have about between 3 and 8 every single day that call me or email me in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And which at times can be annoying, because
Yeah.
sometimes they're just out there. They got 100 calls to make today, and I'm going to be one of them. And then, as fast as they called you, they ghosted you. So,
Yeah. Unfortunately,
that
you're
whole
right.
ghosting thing, you might as well just wrap your head around it and get used to it and quit being offended by it, because it's going to happen.
Yeah, candidate ghosting is something that bothers me so much. And I post about this
It
all the
does.
time. It's hard enough to be a job seeker, but what makes it worse is when a job seeker takes the time to submit an application, takes the time to interview, or even takes the time to put together a presentation, which is what a lot of companies are asking candidates to do. And then they're ghosted, and the companies don't have the decency to get back to these people and close the loop with them. I don't understand why this has become such a big issue, but I can't tell you how many people contact me on LinkedIn telling me their ghosting stories, and I think it's a calamity. I think these companies should be ashamed, and if these
I think
companies,
I know why it happens. This is my guess. Having been in sales management for many years, you have to understand the psyche of salespeople. Salespeople, good ones that have been in the business, that are sales professionals, they're driven by progress, sales, inking deals, and commissions. And salespeople, it's just kind of human nature to go for the low hanging fruit, the easy deal that I can sign today. And a lot of these recruiters are commission based, or they're paid by the calls they make. And then when somebody gets hired and they start work, then everybody in the process gets paid. So if they don't feel that you're going to turn into a candidate that gets hired, they're just on to the next one. They don't say goodbye. They don't say, I know we've talked back and forth about 8 times in a row, but I'm just going to disappear off the face of the earth because I don't have time to mess with you. So that's a little bit of a work ethic, human ethic type in their personality, because no matter who I talk to, if we're having a conversation and I've decided that, I'm not going to move forward, spend much more time with you, I'm going to say, hey, I don't see a good match here. Really appreciate the conversation. Get back to me anytime you want to chit chat. And I just kind of tie it up and move on. But not stop talking and ghost people is beyond me.
well, that's how companies are tarnishing their brands. And what companies have to understand is that there are sites like Glassdoor, for example, where people are using more and more to talk about their interview horror stories. There are people on TikTok that devote their entire TikTok page, so to speak, talking about these stories. So there is, because of social media and because of the websites like Glassdoor and others, people are not afraid anymore because they're getting so upset and so pissed off, excuse my French, but
Right.
they're getting so pissed off by the way they're being treated that they're freely, happily, and okay, well, you know what? This company treated me like crap. I'm going to go on and bash the company. And this is how employer brands are tarnished. And the problem with this is that eventually the job market is going to turn around because these things are cyclical, and people are going to remember how they were treated by employers, and people are going to remember the stories they've read about certain employers that ghosted candidates. And all of a sudden, when these companies are looking to hire, they're not going to have the candidate pools that they need to successfully fill those jobs. So companies need to be very careful with how they treat their candidates. And what's inexcusable to me is that applicant tracking systems, which is something the majority of companies use, have the functionality to send a follow-up, what I call rejection letter, to candidates.
Yes.
All of the applicant tracking systems that I've used in the past, and at least 10, if not more, that I've used, all have this functionality where you click two buttons and an email is sent to the candidate closing the loop. There's no excuse for recruiters not doing this. There's no excuse for it. And so my heart aches for job seekers because I think they have enough to worry about in today's day and age in finding a job, specifically as it relates to the competitive nature of the job market, that companies that treat their candidates poorly should be ashamed. And one thing that I suggest, and I actually posted about this recently as well, is I believe that every CEO, every head of HR, and every head of talent acquisition should apply to a job at their own company and see how the process is from a candidate standpoint.
Absolutely.
And this way, it might be very opening for these individuals putting themselves as a job seeker, seeing how they're treated during every step of the process, and then making changes based on how they're being treated by that company. Every organization should do this, in my opinion.
Absolutely. There's especially if you get into third round interviews, and then 3 weeks later you think to yourself, what is going on?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you didn't want to work with me, can you let me know?
Right.
It's you've had multiple conversations with the recruiter, a couple of interviews with them, and then they turn you on to your hiring manager. Then you have 2 or 3 interviews with them. And then, 3 weeks later, just nothing, just crickets. It's personally, it's kind of shameful.
The other thing I see a lot of companies do now, and I have a very strong opinion on this one as well. I see a lot of companies asking candidates to complete a lengthy assignment as part of the interview process.
Oh, wow.
And I believe that's, in essence, trying to get free work out of a candidate. And I'll tell you something that happened to me, which is very interesting. A couple years ago, I was contacted by an organization to interview for a vice president of talent acquisition position. And part of the interview process, they wanted me to create a presentation and basically mapping out what I believe their entire TA function should be, to include headcount, budget, processes, systems.
Oh, heck no. Heck no.
And it would have taken me, to do it right, to do it the way that I felt it needed to be done, this would have taken me a good 5 hours to do. So I said to the company, I said, are you going to pay me for my time, and are you going to pay me for my effort in completing this assignment? And the company said no. So what did I do? I removed myself as a candidate. So I said no. And I said, if I'm going to embark on this and put all this thought and time together to create something that in my heart, I believe the company was only going to use to their benefit, then they're going to have to pay me for that. So when the company said they weren't going to do that, I very happily removed myself as a candidate and I ran fast and far the other way.
Yeah, I've owned several companies over the years, and I can't even imagine having someone do a project as part of it. Like, if you can't have 3 or 4 interviews with you, your hiring manager, your team and all that, and decide whether somebody has the experience and the talent to do the role, then you got problems. Having them
It's
do some random
yes.
assignment is just, to me, idiotic. And in back to your comment about candidates, some of these candidates have huge reach, huge audience. If you got a YouTuber or a TikTok star and they're being jacked around by a company and they have 1.5 million followers, yeah, you might have a problem if you don't treat them right.
No, absolutely. And I think a lot of companies, I really believe this, and it makes me sad to say this, they're preying on the vulnerability of job seekers right now because they know that it's such an incredibly difficult job market. But I am never going to agree that it is okay to accept free work out of a candidate.
No,
Never. I
no.
will never change my thought on that. Too many companies are asking candidates of this. It's not right. I think candidates have enough to worry about outside of taking their time to complete an assignment. And I just wish companies would just stop asking this of candidates. It's not
Well,
right.
if they absolutely have to, then narrow your search down to about 3 to 5 candidates, and then put on some big boy pants. Hey, folks, we need you to do a project, and we understand your time is valuable. We will give you a flat $200 to put together this project, and take as little or as much time as you need, and then they all get paid. And then now the company can go, hey, we got 5 candidates that are super smart. We might get some ideas on how to be better. And now they feel like they're respected, their time is valued, and you spend $1,000. Who cares?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
that's in my opinion, that's how it should be done. Either
Yep.
that or just don't ask them. So tell me something, Melissa, in your experience, what are some of the common misconceptions that candidates have about the entire recruiting process, and how can they better align their expectations with reality?
Yeah, I think one of the misconceptions is that the recruiter is solely responsible for making a hiring decision. That is not the case. In reality, recruiters play a crucial role in the process, but they typically collaborate with hiring managers and other
Yep.
stakeholders, and those are the folks that have the final say as it relates to hiring. The other misconception is that job seekers, a lot of them believe, I think, that a recruiter will reach out to them immediately after they submit an application if the company's interested. And because of the volume that a lot of these recruiters are receiving in terms of the number of applications, there isn't going to be that situation where recruiters are going to reach out immediately after you submit an application for a job. And I think the other thing too is that a lot of candidates, I believe, feel that an interview process at a company is solely based on the qualifications and experience of the candidate. I think what a lot of companies are doing, and I actually agree with this approach, is that companies are looking for someone who would also be a cultural fit, who has the right personality to mesh with the team. Soft skills are super important as it relates to the role that plays in the interview process. Which is why I suggest to candidates is prepare to showcase your personality and how they would fit into the company culture. And the other thing too, this is very important to mention, is that I think a lot of candidates feel that recruiters will negotiate on behalf of the candidate to get the highest possible salaries. Most recruiters, they're more of a consultation approach that they take in
Sure.
terms of guidance, but the recruiters are working for the company, and so they're not necessarily out there trying to get the best salary for those
Right.
candidates. That's why it's important that candidates do their homework, they research salary benchmarks for the role, and be prepared to negotiate confidently. I think those are probably the biggest misconceptions that candidates have regarding the recruiting process.
That's very, very good advice. I will add to that as well. Don't assume anything. I'm one of those guys that's pretty technical, but not super technical. But I live in a technology world, and I'm pretty creative. And compared to the average developer or programmer, I'm a pretty outgoing, gregarious guy. And there was times in interviews where I thought that I needed to tone down my personality because I might turn off some of the, hiring managers. And as it turns out, on one in particular, before the interview, the recruiter says, okay, look, you're a pretty talkative guy. And I just want you to know that's what they're looking for. They're sick and tired of guys that sit in a dark room and never speak to other humans. And so turn your personality on a little bit and let them know that you know how to communicate with stakeholders and developers and all that. And so it kind of made me think like, man, I'm always trying to tone down my personality so that I can maybe get the job. And so this piece about kind of be yourself comes in handy at times.
Yep. I love it. Love it.
Yeah, that was really, really refreshing, to be honest. So talk about some top secrets. You got any like little hot secrets that maybe our job seekers are not aware of?
Yeah, I would say, and this is really important, is I think in terms of like negotiation from a recruiter's point of view, like I think it's really important, first of all, that all candidates are their own best advocate. And I'm always under the mindset in that if you don't ask, you won't receive. So always do your homework, research the industry standards. There's a lot of websites out there that allow for you to see for free salary benchmarks.
Yep.
And always be your own best advocate. I can't stress that enough. It's important to frame the story around the value that you're going to bring to the role and the value that you're going to bring to the organization. So highlight your past accomplishments, your skills, your experience, and how that will directly contribute to the company's success. And again, I always say, I'll say this again, you got to be your own best advocate, but also be prepared to justify that request. So a lot of times when I'm giving a salary offer or, talking about salary with a candidate, a lot of them just accept right away. And I think because they're afraid that if they negotiate, the offer is going to be rescinded. I can tell you in the 15 years since I have been recruiting, I have never once reneged a job offer because someone has decided to ask me for more money. I expect that from candidates, and a lot of companies build that into this initial salary that they're offering.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
That's a good top secret.
Yeah. So a lot of, and you might know this, but there have been a lot of laws that have been passed in terms of salary transparency. And so not every state has enacted this, but states like California and where I live in Illinois, all job descriptions and job postings have to have the salary range. And so,
nice.
Which I think is great because I think transparency in this is a win-win for everybody. But what a lot of companies do is they post the range, and then a candidate will come in and they'll give their expectation because they see what the range is. But and it's rare that I actually have candidates that are asking for the top of the range, and most candidates are pretty fair about it. But it's really important that candidates, they go in with that knowledge, they understand what the job range is, but come in with the expectation that you're going to probably have to negotiate with the company. Because at the end of the day, the candidate's going to want as much money as they can, and the company's going to want to pay as little as they can. That's why there are those ranges. The other thing I would say to a lot of job seekers, and which they don't understand, it's not just your salary. Consider the entire compensation package, right?
Sure.
Consider the benefits, the perks. What is the healthcare plan? What is the retirement plan? Is there a match on that retirement plan? How much vacation time? Is there professional development opportunities? So it's not just the salary. While salary is important, consider the entire compensation package. I also say that, and I post about this often, is that job seekers always have the power to walk away. So I understand now it's a very, challenging job market, and a lot of candidates probably don't feel that they have the ability to do that because perhaps this is the only job offer that they've received. But it's important that candidates understand their worth and have a clear threshold beyond which they're not willing to accept the offer. So if a company is unable to meet the minimum requirements or negotiate even in good faith, you can walk away from that. You can explore other opportunities that better align with your needs and expectations. But again, job seekers always have the power to walk away if something doesn't look right or something doesn't feel right.
Yes, that is really, really good stuff there. For me personally, the annual base salary has always been a little bit of flux depending on my current need, right? But for me, it's been more about the general vibe and attitude I'm getting from the company.
Yeah.
One company gave me an offer. It was a little bit lower than what I wanted, but I was willing to roll with it. And they wanted somebody on site in downtown Phoenix 100% of the time. And I was kind of like, okay, fine. I'll work with that. But when they sent me the offer, it had a separate agreement. They actually sent me not only just an offer, but it had a contract. And in that contract, there was two pieces. And one of the pieces was this thing called a personal integrity pledge. And in it says, we will give you $10,000 to sign this, but if you quit, get fired, get laid off for any reason in the next 2 years, you got to pay it all back.
Wow.
And then in the language, it says something to the effect of, I, Jerry Sherstead, understand the importance of integrity and being honest and being a person of your word and blah, blah, blah. And it was like my mom was chastising me. And I was like, you guys can take a hike.
There's no way I would ever sign something like that. And quite frankly, this is the first time I've ever heard of a situation like this. I think that's ridiculous.
Oh, I should send you the agreement. It will blow your mind. I mean, there's something wrong with you people. It's like, all you had to do is tell me you want to be on site. I've agreed to it. Come to find out later, they had made 3 offers to Salesforce people in the previous 6 months. And all 3 of them got right down to start date and then took a job that A, paid more, and B, was fully remote. So,
yeah.
Hey, folks, look, you're hiring Salesforce people. 90% of them got in the business specifically because most of the jobs are remote. So you might as well just wrap it around your head that, either hybrid or a remote position is going to be what you're looking at. Or you can go spend $350 an hour for a consultant.
Yeah, I've actually been fully remote for 5 years. And prior to being fully remote, I was in a hybrid model for the 10 years prior to that, before, working from home was even a thing. This is way before COVID.
Yes.
What's interesting is that at the time I received the job offer at my current job, I received another job offer that offered a higher salary, but I would have had to have commuted downtown 3 days a week. And I live in the suburbs of Chicago. And I said, there is no way I'm doing that. And I took the position that had less salary, because if you think about the time you spend commuting, the cost you spend commuting, I said, there's no way I'm working back in an office if I'm getting a wonderful opportunity to work remote. I chose this job that I'm in now. I was very appreciative to the other company for the opportunity to work there. And I turned them down, and I haven't regretted it for 1 second.
Nice. I have to say, I absolutely love remote work.
It's the best.
And,
and I know I mentioned this.
Productive.
Yeah. And I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I think this is really important to mention again. A lot of companies need to understand that when they allow a remote workforce, they have the pick of the best talent globally or even nationally. And if they do not allow remote work, their candidate pool has shrunken to locally. And if a company wants to hire the biggest and brightest stars, the best talent out there, they have to be flexible with this part, is because
yes.
even myself as a recruiter, I speak with candidates all day long. And the number one question I'm asked of candidates, it's not about the salary. It's about, is the job on site or will I be able to work remote? So the companies that want to win the war for talent, they have to become flexible if they're not already flexible. And look, I understand there are some jobs that you can't work remote, right? Some jobs,
yes, of course.
Like my brother-in-law's an anesthesiologist. He has to be at the hospital. Like there's certain jobs that you cannot work remote. But for jobs where you can be remote, if companies want to hire the best and the brightest, they have to consider allowing this with their employees.
I see job descriptions all the time, and I'm reading through it. I'm like, that person that you're showing here does not exist. You want a guy who's a Salesforce administrator and has a background in business analyst, and he can also do some development work just in case you want that, and blah, 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 blah. Oh, and by the way, it's on site in some little podunk town in, Indiana. And I'm going, that guy doesn't exist. Doesn't exist.
Yep.
So you've taken your talent pool, reduced it down to this little teeny bucket versus the entire United States.
That's right.
So it's totally hilarious. Well, we are running out of time, Melissa. Let me just got one more question here for you. And by the way, you have given us some awesome stuff. I mean, I really have to thank you for coming on board for the Jury Rig podcast. So you've been, before we go, talk to me about any kind of final thoughts or resources that you would recommend to our listeners to kind of help them on their job seeking journey.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Honestly, to me, it boils down to, I think LinkedIn is by far in a way the best tool people can use to try to find a job. Like I said earlier, that's how I found my current position. I think that, networking is absolutely imperative and critical. So for people that are looking for a new job, network with as many people as possible, maybe even join industry-specific organizations. There are a ton of great LinkedIn groups where you can connect with like-minded people or professionals that are in your field. You can share insights and even stay updated on industry trends. And in my past, I've attended a ton of networking events. I've met great people. I've attended conferences that are in the HR space. It has allowed me to meet a lot of great individuals, expand my network. But I would say, job seeking is hard. Job seeking is stressful. I have been there before. I hear from job seekers all over the world daily with their panic stories or their stories of how they've been treated as a candidate. And what I would say to job seekers is that every day is a new day. Never give up. You haven't come this far to only come this far, and you only need that one yes. So try to keep your chin up, try to have a good attitude, make sure your LinkedIn is always optimized, make sure your resume is always up to date, and just get yourself out there trying to connect with as many people as possible. And even if you are interested in working at an organization that doesn't have an opening, send a note to the CEO of the company, send a note to the head of HR or talent acquisition. It's how I found my current job, as I mentioned before. And also always be your own best advocate. Like I said earlier, you always have the power to walk away if you're not treated well as a candidate, whether it's during the application process or during the interview process. If you get an offer and you're lowballed and you would have to take a lot of step back just to kind of get to where you are now, it's okay to turn down a job offer if you think that for the longer term, it's not something that would be advantageous for your career. And just always be your own best advocate. I'd say take care of your mental health, take care of your physical health, take breaks. Job searching is really a full-time job, but take breaks, take time to do what makes your heart and soul happy, spend time with your family, and just take care of yourself and know that this time will not last forever.
Exactly. Yeah, I think there's a psychology with humans. It's like whatever you're experiencing right now, your brain feels like that's the way life's going to be forever. And when you're having fun, your brain goes, oh, we're going to have fun forever. And when life's depressing, your brain goes, I'm going to be depressed forever. And that's the only thing that never changes in life is change.
Yeah.
That is always changing. Every day, new opportunities come. Well, thank you so much, Melissa. It's been super enlightening. I've learned a lot of stuff myself, and I've been around the mulberry bush a few times. And so before we head out into the unknown, I was just going to say, don't go anywhere until we're done here because I got to wrap up a couple things with you. And then that's it for the Jerry Rig podcast for today with Melissa Grabiner. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember that Jerry Rig podcast is here to guide you through some of the business, marketing, and technology world, as well as a bit of HR Zen, which we did today. You can also talk to me personally by going to bookjerry.me, or you can just ping me on LinkedIn, and I'll respond. So thanks a lot, everyone, and enjoy your day.
The Jerry Rigged Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or Google. Business technology for CEOs, managers, and business owners. We're here to deliver insights and strategies without the fluff. This is the Jerry Rigged Podcast.